Good afternoon, everybody. It is Mike Shea, and I am here with Pam Henley with All Florida Tax and Financial Services. Pam is in my BNI networking group, and in her morning minute this morning, she was talking about a topic I thought everybody out there would want to know about, which was how to ensure that the PPP that they've gotten, and I am assuming that everybody's going to watch this is going to know what the hell PPP is how to make sure you get it forgiven, what the monies could actually be used for, and how if you do that wrong, that's going to hurt you and you're going to end up paying the money back. So Pam, why don't you give a quick introduction to yourself, and then we can get right into the meat of the topic, which is the PPP forgiveness plan and making sure people can recover and get forgiven on it.
Hi, I'm Pam Henley, as Mike said, and I'm an accountant and co-owner of All Florida Tax Financial Solutions. We've been in business since 2009, and we've been trying to help our clients navigate the process of the payroll protection and then now the forgiveness piece of it. New applications have just started to trickle in on how they're going to do the forgiveness program. It starts off with, there's several components. If you have wages of $100,000, you were limited on the amount of each person that had wages of $100,000 and above. So that's one piece of the PPP that you need to be mindful of. So you're looking like, do you understand that piece of it?
Say that in English like I'm an idiot.
Okay, so.
Because it's probably true, I am an idiot.
No, not at all. No, it's very complicated. It's not as easy as everybody first, on the paper and the surface looks at it. So if I'm an owner and I pulled W-2 wages, or I had 1099 income over 100,000, the SBA limited the amount of funds you were allowed to receive for each person that received wages over 100,000. So they capped it. So if I made 110,000, I wasn't allowed funds for 110,000, but I was allowed PPP funds for 100,000.
Got it. Right. Which is why, in my case, I got 2 months worth of payroll, basically.
Right. Right. And then you got an extra for any utilities, rent, mortgage, interest. Those things were added on top of it. So
I know there's a perception that it was only for wages, but I was listening to the radio this morning before our call, and I overheard the electric, utilities, the fixed overhead. So the PPP was for both payroll and some of the fixed overhead costs in the small business. What was not included?
It's not included are marketing costs, anything for advertising. Let's say your auto, mileage, office supplies, a lot of your daily operating expenses, your consumables, anything in that area is not included in your PPP. So that the program was truly to keep the employers to keep their employees employed.
Right.
So the PPP is 75% of that needs to go to your employees.
Right. So starting off, small business owners need to understand the intent of the program was to keep people with wages and the utilities, et cetera, to keep the system,
the lights on,
governmental system still flowing in a manner that they could be there when this thing ended, right?
Correct. So to pay your rent, pay your utilities, the basics is what it's meant for. So
if I'm a business owner and I got PPP, should I not have? How do they need to document that they have? What's the recommended documentation process so that they can prove that the funds were used for the right things?
We're telling our clients once they receive the funds to go ahead, if they haven't already, and create a separate bank account. This will make your reconciliations very easy. So that way, when it comes time for the reconciliations, they're going to require the 2 months of bank statements. Those bank statements are going to tie in to all your checks that you wrote for PPP. So you should roll your payroll through it. If your payroll company, if you're not using, like we do our payroll for our clients, so I ensure on each check that rolls out that in the memo section, not only is it the date range that the check was paid for, but it also specifically says in the memo that is PPP funds. So there's no question of when and how those funds were used. And we're uploading all those into a secure file that's totally labeled so that when the time comes, we can pull it all and send it to the banking institution along with the application for forgiveness. So it needs to be well documented.
Yeah, I mean, so you and I both, because of what we do, know that small business owners are really bad about documenting and annotating, and they make assumptions about what people should know, or just believe me. The SBA and the government is not going to believe you unless you document exactly where the money goes in and exactly how the money was used. So do not forget to put the memo posting inside on the checks, or if you're doing e-checks, make sure that you're over documenting where those funds are being spent, right?
Correct. Definitely, you want to be over documenting. That's a great word for it. On your rent check, be sure that you write it in the memo. PPP funds, rent, put the month, the amount that's being used for. Those funds are to go straight there. Pull it out of that separate bank account. That's why the separate bank account is going to make, for the small business person or any size business, it makes the reconciliation easy. Because again, I can't reiterate it enough that those bank statements need to be pulled, and it's going to be very easy to reconcile your account if you have a separate account.
Yeah, it was funny. I got a call yesterday afternoon from Bank of America, and they were calling me to let me know that I was going to notice on my banking screen a new line item for the PPP loan. It wasn't moved out. It was just, here's the funds. It's in the bank account. So they actually set that up for me automatically.
It was nice.
Yeah. And I'm like, great, you just saved a step for me. And I'm like, you guys are thinking ahead because they want to get it off their books as quick as possible. So, because now they're carrying a liability, right? So
they are.
Right.
They are.
Get it off the books.
And you, the business owner, believe it or not, you're carrying a liability.
Right.
It's a loan. It is a loan. So everybody's thinking it's free money. No, you have to jump through the hoops to make sure that it's reconciled. And it is on the onus of the business owner that pulled the loan to get the documents necessary back to the bank to ask for forgiveness. So the bank's not going to come to you and say, oh, your 8 weeks are up. It's up to you to make sure that 8 weeks and when it's finished, that you've got all the documentation necessary, fill out the application and request forgiveness.
So from receipt of the loan, right? So I received my funds last Monday morning, right? I should start preparing the paperwork when? Now?
You can start now. Absolutely.
Okay. Where do we get the paperwork? I mean, where's that application available?
Application, I actually have one. I'll be happy to share it.
Okay.
Banks should be providing it for you.
Okay.
So I'm assuming it will be, and you know what assumptions are, but we're assuming that from the SBA, it's going to be uniform across the board. So I know our applications changed 4 times for the PPP application before finally they settled on a uniform document. So I just received, like I said yesterday, the first one that came out. So I have a draft and I'll be happy to share it.
Yeah, I saw one of the attorneys in the Business Brokers Association sent out a copy of it. And, I think the business owners assume the government's got their act together. The banks did. I mean, I was talking to a banker yesterday, he goes, everyone thought we could just crank out this money when the government's telling us to lend the money, and we haven't even got the lien documents and the loan documents prepared yet to do all this at a scale that was massive. So
it was massive.
Yeah.
I mean, Congress Monday had passed it. That Monday, they wanted all the banks to start, getting the applications out, and their platforms weren't ready. So it made it very difficult for the banks. I do have to say, there were bankers that I worked with that just really worked tirelessly for their customers, and then even some that weren't their customers.
So the payroll should be easy because you're writing payroll checks to the appropriate employee. You're going to put the annotation and you're going to document it. Hey, it came from in the notes section that it came from the payroll. Should we also be keeping the invoices for the bills on the electric?
Yes. you need to, because they are going to be required. I suggest that everybody go back to their original application that they made. There are a lot of the banking institutions required the lenders to actually break out how the funds were going to be used.
Right.
So go back to your use funds. The particular bank that we worked with a lot, it was on a spreadsheet, and it broke out payroll 75%, what your utilities were. That is going to be your guide to make sure that you're within the guidelines of what will be forgiven.
Right. And for, you know, for 10,
don't forget too, you have to, another piece that I think some people might be missing is that, remember, your payroll cannot drop below the 25%
what do you
of
mean?
what you reported.
So you can't have, so if you went in at, you know, $100,000 for, you know, a month, you can't drop below the 75,000 on your payroll.
Right. And the number of employees.
What do you mean by that?
So here's where it gets sticky, and I've got some small businesses where they only have 2 employees and they reported their payroll as such. Well, if I'm the owner and then I have my staff, if I let my staff member go, I've dropped way below, and now I'm at 50% of what I reported.
Right. So
employees.
do they onboard somebody at that point? Or
you can onboard and you can add, but you just can't drop below what you reported, 25% of the number of employees that you have.
So if you do, then you should take the funds that are allocated and put it in a separate account and then send it back when the time comes.
Correct. Absolutely.
Don't spend the money. Right?
Don't spend the money, because it can come back to eat your lunch.
Right.
They think, oh, it's just a 1% loan. Well, it's a 1% loan that's deferred for 6 months and payable in 24.
Right. It's a 1% loan that's specifically allocated for certain things. And
correct.
And I don't want to throw this out because I'm not a lawyer, but when you use it for other things, that's fraud. And I saw 2 guys in Rhode Island get arrested last weekend, which shouldn't shock me being from Rhode Island, up on Federal Hill, the mob section. 2 guys, restaurants that weren't even open, submitted for the PPP, and the feds went after them and arrested them for that's bank fraud, using money for federal money, federal guaranteed money for things that it's not, you know. So don't take this lightly. This is a real deal, and because there's so much emotion around it, the powers that be in the courts aren't going to be friendly with people who abuse the PPP.
No, we ran through the exercise just yesterday with a client in real estate. And that she was capped out, you know, with the $100,000 wages. And we ran through what she could actually use the rest of the funds for. And we're actually going to cut a check back for about $2,400. We can't use them. Right.
It's not play money, and you should give it back, because, you know, I went off on a little bit of a tirade Friday about, you know, they gave us the money to survive. Let's not do what some of the big banks did in the recession and used to kind of, you know, for our own devices. Let's set the example, give it back so that money can be redeployed to get this thing moving again, because we're not out of the woods here. The next probably 1.5 to 2 years are going to be rough for a lot of people.
I believe so. I do. I'm hoping that, you know, these funds will carry, but it's you know, it's 8 weeks to try to, you know, get people back on feet again. So we'll see. We're hoping for that.
All right. Well, Pam, I want to give everybody your contact information, how to get a hold of you, and then I will post this out. So how can they get a hold of you guys?
Yep. Our email address is phenley@allfloridatax.net. Our office number is 407-730-4892. And we're there 5 days a week.
Tax services, bookkeeping services, negotiating with the IRS.
Correct.
Right, restaurants, medical. She's got a background in medical, so medical practices, billing. They understand that world really, really well. Her son's a dentist, so they know quite a bit about that piece. All right, thank you. I'll see you next week.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it.
Yep.